The Omni Talk Fast 5 is brought to you in association with the A&M Consumer and Retail Group. The A&M Consumer and Retail Group is a management consulting firm that tackles the most complex challenges and advances its clients, people, and communities toward their maximum potential. CRG brings the experience, tools, and operator-like pragmatism to help retailers and consumer products companies be on the right side of disruption. And Avalara. Avalara makes tax compliance faster, easier, more accurate, and more reliable for 30,000 plus business and government customers in over 90 countries. Avalara leverages 1,200 plus signed partner integrations to power tax calculations, document management, tax return filing, and tax content access. Visit avalara.com to improve your compliance journey. And Miracle. Miracle is the global leader in platform business innovation for e-commerce. Companies like Macy's, Nordstrom, and Kroger use Miracle to build disruptive growth and profitability through marketplace, dropship, and retail media. For more information, visit miracle.com. That's MIRAKL.com. And Own It AI. Own It AI helps the world's leading retailers advance their e-commerce shopping experiences with AI. To learn more, visit ownit.co. And finally, Sezzle. Sezzle is an innovative buy now, pay later solution that allows shoppers to split their purchases into 4 interest-free payments over 6 weeks. To learn more, visit Sezzle.com. Hello, you're listening to Omni Talk's Retail Fast 5, ranked in the top 10% of all podcasts globally and currently ranked in the top 100 of all business podcasts on Apple Podcasts. The Retail Fast 5 is the podcast that we hope makes you feel a little smarter, but most importantly, a little happier each week too. And the Fast 5 is just one of many great podcasts that you can find from the OmniTalk Retail Podcast Network, alongside our Retail Daily Minute, which brings you a curated selection of the most important retail headlines every morning, and our Retail Technology Spotlight series, which goes deep each week on the latest retail technology trends. Today is July 24th, 2024. I'm one of your hosts, Ann Mazenga.
And I'm Chris Walton.
And we are here once again to discuss and to debate the most important headlines from the past week. Chris, we've got big news. We are about to go on summer break.
Yes, Ann, we're taking a 3-week vacation, right? 3 weeks. That's crazy. Yes, I'm excited about it though.
Yes, and as small business owners, we take the term 3-week vacation very loosely. You cannot say that to your spouses or significant others or family because they fully expect that you will be completely unplugged, which God knows will probably not actually happen in real life. But important programming note that we will be back with the Fast 5 on August 21st, 2024.
We're taking a 3-week break from the Fast 5, Ann. What are you going to do? I mean, what are you going to do when you don't talk about the weekly retail headlines with me every week? Are you going to feel like there's a hole in your life? For sure. You know, at like 8 a.m. every Wednesday, you're going to be like, wow, there's something missing in my life right now. What could it be?
Next week, I'm going to be in a different time zone. So I will not be thinking about 8 o'clock.
You're going to the Hagen, right? The Copenhagen, right?
I'm going to Copenhagen. Yes. So hopefully I will not be thinking too much about retail, although I am planning on visiting a store that's got a new like Cleveron system while I'm there. I haven't talked to my spouse about this yet. So this is going to be one of those like,
that. Oh yeah, let's go shoot a video of the store,
this thing, but they're doing some cool stuff at a supermarket there. So I want to check that out. But other than that, I'm going to try to relax, Chris. I'm going to try to Hyugge or whatever. Hygge, Hygge. I forget, where you like get all cozy and enjoy the
is that what it is? It's over my bald head, Ann. And speaking of over my head, there's something. What is that over your shoulder? You're in a new location today. First, where are you? First of all, and what is that over your? Is that your left shoulder? What is that?
I feel like I'm a hurricane reporter right now. Like, well, Chris, I'm standing here in front of 2 gongs. We're staying
it's a gong.
We have 2 gongs. 2. There's 2.
Oh my God.
There's one large one and one small one. And those are legit gongs. This is my mother. We're staying at my mother-in-law's right now. And that is not just something that was picked up at Home Goods. There's a whole basket full of, I almost said bangers. I think there's a more appropriate term, like a gong stick or something.
Oh, right.
Listeners, correct us, but
wow. So those are literal gongs behind you, and you're at the MILs, and she's got gongs on the wall. That is amazing. Oh my God.
We've got gongs on the wall. But what are you gonna do during break? What's your plan? You got any fun summer?
No, I mean next week I'm staycationing. I'm staycationing next week. probably like doing some token work while you're in Denmark. And then, you know, because we are small business owners. And then, you know, heading out to California for at least the next week and maybe the week after. I haven't decided yet, but TBD on that one. But yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm super pumped to get some time off. You know, we burn the candle pretty hard, especially January through March and all the way up to June, really, with our travel schedule. So it's nice to be able to take some time off. And honestly, you know, after this week, we've seen it year over year that everyone's on vacation. So there's no content. There's no major retail headlines that are going to be missed. And if there are, we'll catch everyone up on them when we get back on what'd you say, the 21st of August. So
21st
we're excited to join everyone when that day comes around. So Anne, I think it is only fitting that we get this gong show started, right? What do you say?
Let's get the gong show on the road, Chris.
Let's get to the headlines. On the road. Let's do it. All right. Today's headlines. In today's Fast Five, we've got news on Best Buy's push into video content, a new capability from Simbe Robotics that allows retailers to monitor store shelves remotely, Google's plans to keep its cookies after all, and something called Amazombies that are leaving a wake of destruction upon every retail store they enter. Plus, the man with the best Irish accent in the history of Omni Talk, John Clear from the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, stops by for 5 insightful minutes on shrinkage and what retailers can do about it. But we begin today with news on Target that absolutely made my jaw drop yesterday. And
I love the joy that comes to your face when you say shrinkage, and that you specifically are like, how do we make this a Seinfeld reference and make it so much more funny than it is in reality? But yeah. I'm so glad it brings you so much joy.
I know the title of the podcast will say retail shrinkage, but I had to go with the shrinkage.
You
joke.
had
Yes.
to go with shrinkage.
Thank you for appreciating that.
I totally get it. I totally get it. All right, Chris, let's go to headline number 1. Target employees reportedly hate their new AI chatbot. According to Forbes staff writer Cyrus Farivar, Target's new internal AI tool, Help AI, is facing significant criticism from the store staff. Workers have reported that the tool provides inadequate and often frustrating responses, and issues include its inability to handle complex or sensitive situations effectively, and its general lack of helpfulness in addressing those basic store operations. The reception of the new tool, Forbes claims, has been largely negative, with employees questioning the value and effectiveness of the tool, with some employees even expressing frustration over the allocation of resources to this tool when there are more pressing operational issues, such as long checkout lines and understaffing. One employee told Forbes, quote, "Why don't they spend the time applying AI to something actually useful? Why aren't they using machine learning to identify trends in the items that get canceled from order pickups?" End quote.
Boom.
Okay, Chris, A&M is also going to put you on the spot during this this headline.
We're starting off hot. All right.
We're starting off hot. A&M wants to know, Chris, is AI just not ready for this kind of employee-facing application, or did Target do it wrong? I'm going to go to you, Chris. This is Salacious with a capital S article, so we encourage all readers to take a look at this yourself in Forbes. But where do you fall on this, and how would you answer that question from A&M, Chris? Is Target ready? Did they do it wrong? Explain yourself.
Okay, yeah, so let's hit the article first. I think it is important to point out that this is an article that comes from the staff writer at Forbes. This is not a contributor. Like, I'm a contributor. I'm not really a journalist, but this guy is. So the degree of journalism and the integrity that should be put to that journalism should be higher than the average thing that you're reading from Forbes in retail on a general basis, I would say. But with that said, the article is pretty salacious. I didn't know we could use some of the language that was in that article, which we purposely left out of the headline read too. And I would say, like, there was some really colorful language that was being used. And you have to question too, like, the quality of the sources and even some of the points that were being made, like the points you made about the allocation of resources. That seemed like the angle he was going for in the article. But the cost of software to do this pales in comparison to the cost of adding hours to 2,000 stores every hour of the week and every week of the year. Like, we're talking millions and millions of dollars to do that. So I thought that point was really sad. But going back to the A&M question. So I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. Like, and so first of all, is AI ready for this kind of thing? I thought really hard about that this week. You know, you and I've talked about this. Like, I think it's good for the training side of things. Like, you know, when you have to sit in front of the computer and do that kind of thing. So like those first few days of being on an assignment, but the use cases that are being purported, and Target was guilty of this, when you're on the floor I don't really understand what they are, because having worked in the store, I was trying to think back, like, what would I actually use this for? The most common thing that I had to do was like find a product. And I don't
Mm.
need AI to help me find a product, or if I'm at the check lane at a register, I'm not going to have time to like ask AI how to do something, like, or like they use the active shooter thing too. Like if there's an active shooter, you're not
Oh
going to
my
be going
God,
to
that was the
AI and
worst
being like,
example.
yeah. And the funny story about this, when I was getting trained, and sorry, I'm going to go a little bit long on this today, but when I was getting trained, like on the cash register, there were robberies in the area. And I said to the guys, like, I went through the training. I don't know how to open the cash register if I need to, because they try not to let you open it unless there's a transaction, right? And so,
Right.
but like if there's an emergency situation where I need to open the cash register because somebody's got a gun pointed at my head, how do I do that? And the guy, and I'll never forget it because we make fun of it. We still joke about it today. The guy was like, you'll just call me. And I'm like, I'm not gonna call you. Like, I can't the guy's got a gun to my head. Like, what am I supposed to do? So like I just don't know how many applications there are for this type of thing, which makes me think the real opportunity here possibly is in like the passive impact, which the quote is really good too. Like, how do you use AI and analytics to help us with and understand where we need to improve our operations through computer vision, through robotics, through systematized understanding of the data running through a store? That's where I'd be investing. So then the other part, lastly, and then sorry, I know I'm going long here, but the last part too is I think Target does deserve some blame here too, because if all that's a factor, why are you taking credit for this publicly? Before you rolled it out, the timeline was really quick, which we called out when we first heard
Yeah,
about
you
this
said that.
story too. And so I think there's some egg on your face here, Target, potentially, but at the same time, it's still new and they're still learning and it's still going to be, adapted over time. So I don't know. That's my take, but, trying to keep it on the level too, because the article was really salacious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you to some extent, but I don't think that there's zero reason for using an AI tool like this. Walmart rolled this out. They have added Ask Sam. However, to your point, they chose a different approach. They rolled this out in some Sam's Club locations, then trickled it out to more Sam's Clubs, then rolled it out to Walmart. But it's proving to be a useful tool for them. You have other retailers like Victoria's Secret using this. Like, I do think there's some applications, even in the example that you gave, Chris, where it's like, where do breadcrumbs go when you're a new stock person, to be able to like just ask that of a device and they're saying, okay, it's aisle C8, and then you go to that aisle. Like,
But Anne, can I stop you for a sec though? Like that
yeah,
example, particularly, like you can just scan the barcode and it tells you where to put that. Like
fair.
that's why I said that. Like that's the most common use case that comes to me, and like you don't need AI for that.
Well, you could use an AI. I don't think it rules out an AI assistant. It's just another opportunity for
I
you to
guess it,
quickly
it
ask that.
changes the dynamic of it. Yeah,
It's
that's cool.
if you have, I mean, I'm thinking like brand new people, they're 16, this is their first job, they're used to asking questions in that way.
Right.
Is this an easier way for them to
Right.
train? So number one, I think the key thing that I take away from this is there's two things. Target needs to figure out a different rollout solution. I think you're absolutely right that to roll this out to all places, because you need that team member adoption so badly for these tools to be successful, I think that
Yeah.
it was probably just a bad rollout, that it went out too fast to too many people. And clearly there are a couple people or a couple stores who are not having great experiences with it. But then I also think that the second part of this is that they do need to, because now Target employees, not just the media analysts, not just or retail experts, are also feeling, it sounds like from this article, that Target should be focused on making more practical innovation investments. And so I
Right.
think that that's the other part of this. If I'm Target, I'm taking away that it's spread out into the field. Your team members, your employees are feeling this way too. So how are you tackling those two things? And that's, if I'm taking anything concrete and actionable out of this article that I still feel is completely salacious and could have been done way better,
Yeah.
I think those two things are things that I'd be taking away if I was Target.
So there's two things you make me think about. One is 100% agree. Like, because Target, when they made this statement, was saying it actually was, they were kind of purporting that it would be a growth vehicle too. Like it was going to help improve things and make things work. And through the discussion we're having, like, I doubt you're going to get that much growth from it. It maybe makes your sales, maybe if you can find the right application, it maybe helps a little bit, but sometimes finding those right applications are tough. The other point that I want to give you credit on, which you made me think about, because we were talking about this story yesterday when it broke, is you brought up Walmart, and somebody asked me that too. They're like, "Hey, have you ever found a chatbot that people actually like?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, Walmart's Ask Sam seems to be doing well." But by the same token, you know, there's a lot of companies out there purporting to do this and taking credit for it, but you don't actually know who likes it and who doesn't, right? Like which store employees at these retailers actually like the implementation of these tools. And, is this a case where some reporter just happened to go into a Target because he wanted to pick on Target and talk to employees? But if you went into a Sam's Club over Victoria's Secret, would you get the same, type of information from them?
Yep.
We don't know, which is why it's our job to be like, okay, how much should we believe this stuff as being that impactful as it's happening, right? I mean, I don't know. You get the last word here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just encourage like even on our 3-week hiatus, our DMs are always open. So if you are in the stores, you have an opinion about this, please reach out and tell us. We'd love to get more information, and we'll report back to everybody listening. So that's
let's do a roundtable on like Victoria's Secret, Sam's Club, Target. Who's got the best AI chatbot tool in the store? Let's find out.
Do it.
All right. Headline number 2. This one I'm curious about, and Best Buy is reportedly doubling down on video content. According to Chain Storage, the company is creating a new lineup of videos focused on innovators, new products, discovery, tech tips, buying guides, and more. More than 500 videos will be rolled out by the end of the year on Best Buy's YouTube channel and on its app and website. And you wanted to include this headline this week. So what do you think of Best Buy's stated push into video?
I love it. I think Best Buy is the retailer that is perfectly poised to do this. And there's a lot of things in this announcement. I mean, this article came out when Best Buy made this announcement this week. Everything from like a hologram that's going to be talking to people to new functionality on the app and website. But what really caught me and what I really felt like was important to highlight is that they're committed to over 500 videos for their sites and YouTube channels this year. I just love it because there's so much to do with this content, especially when you think about the types of products that Best Buy sells. We just had a conversation with Bitly and GS1 this week. Like, I think when you put those QR codes on your products, and now you're opening it up to not just, where did the product come from? Here's my receipt. Here's when the product was manufactured. But now you have this trove of content. Like, here's how you hang the TV on the wall. Here's how you could do a DIY project with X influencer who we had come from Best Buy. Like, there's so much content that you can create as a brand. You can create shoppable video, which they're intending on doing. And then I just think about how much mileage you can get from video, Chris. We do this in our own business. And I think you can take those videos, those DIY, those tutorials, those how do I choose the best computer, all of those data points that are so valuable, and you can cut those up and put them across all of Best Buy's social programs too. Like, I just think it's very telling, and I think that Best Buy and the team and Jenny Weber, the CMO over there, deserve tons of kudos for going in this direction and committing to these 500 videos. I think it's brilliant.
I'm gonna go in a completely different direction on this one, and I gotta respectfully disagree with you. And my big question for you is like, is 500 a lot? I mean, we do 10 videos a week, and it's just the two of us. We're not Best Buy. We don't have the resources.
That's exactly why 500 videos is a lot. I mean, you're talking about a giant machine with a production team internally that has to go through getting approvals. Like, hopefully this will become a more expedited process so that more than 500 videos can be made. But yeah, I mean, I think that's significant.
Yeah,
1.5 videos per day.
I don't know. I feel like Best Buy with the resources could be producing a lot more content than that, and you could be opening up the floodgates to user-generated content to be using that to an end too.
Why? Yeah, I mean, you could do all of that. Yeah.
So my thing with this, like, I read this. I actually got wind of this early because I'm pretty connected with the Best Buy PR team now, and I love that they send me all this stuff early too. So thank you to them for doing it. But I don't know. I read the whole thing just sounded like a press release. And honestly, like even the video thing, it kind of sounds like trying to take credit for something you already should be doing. Like, you should already be in video. You should already be doing this. You should already be doing how-to videos and stuff. Right. I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So like 500 doesn't seem like a big increase to me if you're already doing it. Like, you should be going after this. Like, I'd expect to see a much bigger number or something that tells me that you're really doing this differently as well, which I didn't get from the announcement. So I know you love it, but I can't get on board with this being very substantive or something that's going to turn the tide in the long run, especially given, of late Best Buy sales have not been where they want them to be. Now they've got a lot of great initiatives in place, particularly on the AI front, which they also alluded to in the article too, in terms of, how they're using AI to improve the customer service angles on the website, which I think are very interesting. But, the video portion, I just can't get on board with it. I'm sorry.
All right. I think we need to make a friendly wager where the loser has to make a YouTube video doing something embarrassing and put it on YouTube. We can submit it to Best Buy.
Like me setting up a computer videos. Like that, yes. that's worth a ton of laughs for a long time. Like,
precisely.
Oh
you shooting
setting
a
up
video.
a non-Apple computer, right?
Yes,
like
you shooting your own video. That's what we will take a video
of.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, headline number 3. Simbe Robotics has rolled out a new capability that lets retailers remotely monitor store shelves. According to Grocery Dive, Simbe has rolled out technology that allows grocers to remotely monitor inventory levels, product layouts, and other aspects of their stores visually using imagery and data captured by Tally, the company's aisle scanning robots. The system, which is available on mobile devices and desktop computers, provides high-definition snapshots and time-lapse footage of store shelves at various heights. Simbe has also introduced mobile apps that allow store staff and managers to access and interpret data the Tally robots capture using their smartphones, reflecting the company's sense that retailers are becoming more dependent on data analysis capabilities. Chris, we've seen these Tally robots alive and well inside Schnucks. How significant do you think that Simbe's new remote monitoring enhancement angle to these robots is?
Quite simply, I'd say that in one word, quite. That's the word I would use, Anne, is quite. I think it's quite significant. We've talked almost ad nauseum about Tally at Schnucks, particularly, and the value it brings to creating a smart store and overall store operations in general. In fact, I think I don't want to quote Dave Schnucks, but I'll paraphrase him. Don't take my robot, I think is what Dave would say. Don't get your hands off my robot. Don't ever think about taking it out of my store, right? But I think Dave Steck. Yes, Dave Steck from Schnucks. Thank you. God, yes. I'm on a first name basis with him.
I was like, Dave Schnucks, did he marry into the family?
It's so funny too, because you and I always hate when people are like, oh, I talked to,
Dave,
Doug or Brian, like you're on a first name basis with the CEO and whatever. But like, yeah, so sorry. So yes, but Dave and I are on a first name basis. So yes, Dave Steck, shout out to him. But, so for all the store operation angles, I think this thing is really important for another reason, because it brings the data from a smart store back into the headquarters and makes them more efficient too. And specifically the merchants, they can see in real time what their categories look like on shelf and at what hours of the day. And they can also share that data back with the category managers, who are an important part of deciding what goes on the shelves in a grocery experience day in and day out. So more data, more insights can be collected, and ultimately that drives more sales here. So I think this is extending the value of computer vision and robotics more throughout the organization. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. And Chris, I mean, one of the things that came to mind that I wanted to ask you about this is, like, I think back to your district manager days at Target, like, wouldn't it have been nice to be able to, while you're at one store, like pull up, like, here's what this store in this location is doing on your mobile device? Is that, I mean, it seems like that would be valuable instead of having to just take your word for it.
100% actually. And yes, so this is how this works, right? So every week at headquarters would send out here were the key planogram changes. Can you go and inspect them? And I was always big on that because I was a merchant. Like, I know how much time the merchants spend on doing those planogram changes. And a lot of my code details would be like, yeah, we never look at that stuff because it's never right. It never works for our store. Our store layouts are different. But you're right. Like, you could actually filter all this up and have it validated against the computer vision system. And then you could manage the exceptions. Or I, as a DTL, could go into the store and be like, okay, I know these ones aren't right. Let me go check and see what it is. Is it because we don't have the planogram right in the system? There's a poll running through it, whatever it is. You're 100% right. That use case is real.
Right. Yeah. I think, this wasn't a Simbe use case exactly, but the first thing I thought of when I was reading this story, and just the flexibility that it allows, like putting these applications on mobile devices, was a conversation that I had with the general manager of Kavanaugh's out in London.
Yeah.
And we were looking at similar information. Like, they're using the Fusion Group's cameras to scan shelves. But that was like the best part of his life, was like, this has changed to make my job, which used to be so like when there was a problem or an out of stock or I had to change an order, I had to come into the store in person, even on his day off or even on like when he was on vacation or he was just not at that location. And this gave him and other workers who you're trying to attract to the grocery industry, like it gives them some flexibility too that they never have had before. So I think that's just a really important thing to call out, that not only is this like providing so much support to the operations of the store, but it's also giving flexibility to the people who are running that store day in and day out. And I think that's a really important point to highlight here, because of the value that just that one general manager seemed to have found from this ability to look at this in real time, any place, from anywhere.
Yeah, the one thing I would say about, actually two more things I'd say about it. I was not aware at how many locations Simbe has their robots. Like they're at BJ's
Oh yeah.
Wholesale, Spartan
Yeah, we were
Nash,
talking about that.
Wakefern, Schnucks. Like that's pretty impressive because all those retailers operate very differently too. But the other thing I would say, the one caveat I would say about this article though, it's just the first step. Like for this really to work, there has to be a whole host of analytics and an analytics suite that enables the merchandising teams and the regional teams that oversee the stores to be able to act on this data. Because the idea that someone is sitting at a desk at headquarters or on their iPad while they're traveling between stores, looking at all these different stores and all these different planograms, that's not going to happen. There has to be something that analytically serves them up the data that they need to manage from an exception basis, and that is smart enough to understand when those exceptions are happening, which is really the key point here. But that's what Simbe's really good at. They understand that it's not about real time. It's about the right data at the right time when you talk to Dave Steck and the Schnucks team. So yeah, I'm excited. I think it's a great announcement, man. All right, let's now say hello to our good friend from the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, the great John Clear.
Joining us now for 5 insightful minutes is Omni Talk friend and Senior Director at the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, John Clear. John will be discussing with us the results of his most recent study on combating shrink in retail organizations. All right, John, let's dive in. We all know that shrink has dominated headlines over the last number of years. How do you define shrink, and why is it such a big concern?
Hey, Anya, shrink is really a big concern because it's grown to pretty huge levels over the last number of years. So it's worth 2% of net retail sales, up from 1.4% in 2021. So that's over $140 billion. The second part is how to define it, right? So a lot of people define it differently. What we're really focused on in this paper is unknown shrink. So those type of things which you think a product is in your store, in your DC, but it's actually not. And so that can range from theft, which is obviously a big topic, all the way through to kind of mismanaged inventory or incorrectly counted product.
Well, I want to dive into external theft, John, because I feel like that's really dominating the headlines. That's what we're hearing retail executives say is the problem here. But how do you define external theft, and why is that where people are focusing so much of their time?
Yeah, so external theft is really kind of somebody walks into your store and takes something and doesn't pay for it. It's relatively straightforward. I think executives are kind of focused on it because it definitely has grown over the last number of years, and has grown more so in public consciousness post-COVID, right? So that's a reason why I think it's on the tip of their tongues. The second part is it's uncontrollable. So it's hard for you to go and tell a lot of people outside your store to stop stealing from you. And so it becomes a bit of an easy excuse to say, oh, well, shrink is growing and everybody's stealing from us, and there's not a lot we can do about it. So I think it's become somewhat of an easy conversation to have because everyone agrees that theft is bad, and therefore you can talk all about theft being bad, rather than focusing and turning inwardly on the other areas that we would see as problems, which would be theft internally from your own staff, and then operational shrink, things to do with how your business actually runs on a day-to-day basis.
Well, yeah, from what we've heard, I mean, internal theft appears to be a major driver of loss. What strategies do you recommend for retailers listening on really how to attack that front?
Yeah, I mean, internal theft from our research is worth 27% of all unknown shrink. So it's a huge bucket that needs to be addressed. The second part is that internal theft is an average internal theft is almost 4 times more expensive than the average external theft. So it's a huge bucket that needs to be addressed. At A&M CRG, we're really focused on practical, scalable solutions that drive short-term impact. And so here we're really focused around kind of people and processes. So how do you train your staff effectively on the notices and the policies and procedures that are in place already? There is a noted psychological study that shows that people behave differently when they know they're being monitored. So if you actually tell them that we're going to do something about it, if there's internal theft, that drives a big impact. The second part why that's important is that staff turnover in retail is obviously extremely high. And then you would move on to kind of standardized case building. So if when a theft occurs, how do you actually build a case successfully and quickly and engage local law enforcement to prosecute it so that you can show the rest of your staff that you're serious about it? And before you move on to things like surveillance and AI cameras, really you should leverage those processes and procedures to drive short-term impact, which can then fund more expensive technologies to kind of be an enabler for those processes you've got in place already.
I love that thought process. It makes sense. Focus on the people and processes first to fund the other larger initiatives after that. Well, a big part of that too is operational shrink. I mean, it's really diving into how can you change things operationally, like you're talking about with internal theft and internal shrink. Can you dive into that just in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, sure. Operational shrink then is really the kind of what we would call basic blocking and tackling within retail operations. And in a lot of ways is really boring and it's not super innovative. So a lot of people aren't very excited to talk about it. But the kind of three main focuses there would be proper inventory control. So that goes across the board from receiving practices from your DC, standardized processes for checking in DSD deliveries to make sure you're receiving the right products, the right quantities, and through to kind of your regular cadence of counting what's actually in the store, either like usually a weekly process and then underpinned by a quarterly or annual process so you really have visibility. And then the other two pillars that we would focus on there would be proper like hygiene at checkout. Are people using the PLU codes correctly? What happens if a UPC is not maintained? Do they actually go find the item code or do they just scan something else? And then the final piece, which is really, I didn't leave the best for last, which is master data maintenance, because it's the main topic that people don't really want to talk about. And there's always somebody in an organization who's screaming about master data and nobody wants to listen to them. But there it's like, have you got the right case packs maintained so that you know you're shipping the right product from the store to the DC? Are the correct UPCs maintained in the right items? Those are really simple, like everyday tasks that a retail organization can control, but they are not very innovative or kind of quote unquote sexy. So a lot of attention isn't given to them, but they can drive huge impact. And from our research, this is worth even more than internal theft. It's worth 29% of unknown shrink. So you could tackle over 60% of your problem by two areas that are really controllable in this area. And then you don't need to focus on the kind of the big bad wolf of external theft.
Thanks, John.
Headline number 4, Google has switched its tune on Chrome cookies. Love the alliteration there, Anne. According to the Wall Street Journal, Google is ending a plan to eliminate cookies in its Chrome browser after 4 years of efforts, delays, and disagreements with the advertising industry. The decision to keep the pervasive tracking technology in Chrome comes after both digital advertising companies and regulators objected to the plan and to Google's proposed replacement technologies. Chrome users can already choose to block cookies in their browser settings. Now, instead of eliminating them, Google will present users with a prompt to decide whether to turn cookies on or off. And how impactful do you think Google's decision to keep cookies will be on retailers and brands?
I mean, I think it's going to be huge for brands who are clearly still lobbying to have this access to consumers, even the few that are still allowing the cookies. But really, I think that this shouldn't change the trajectory for the brands. I was reading in one of the articles in Retail Touchpoints that where they interview the chief marketing officer at Klaviyo, and I think that Jamie Dominici, the CMO, really said it best. And Jamie said, "quote In fact, the strategy for brands should remain the same. Ask permission, ensure your customers have a choice on what data they share, and rely on zero and first party data to craft your campaigns." End quote. Like, I think this hits on it exactly. Like, keep going forward. Just because it didn't work for Google this particular time, you still need to focus on other means to have that one-to-one relationship with your customers. And so I think that's a key message for me here for the brands is, you've been doing digital advertising for God knows how many years. You already know how to do that. Now let's figure out how you really deepen those first party, those one-to-one connections with customers.
Yeah, I don't have much to add here. Like, I actually think after reading the little bit I did on it, over the last couple of days, is like, to me, it seems like more of a move for Google to get in front of the regulation and the antitrust issues that potentially we're going to come about with this. So,
right.
So I think, to your point, and even if they do what they do, where they give people the opt-in that pops up now when you go on any page, most, like they said, like 70% of the time people opt out. So like, this world is coming anyway, regardless. And so it's just, to your point, I think it's just a question of, continuing to put in place the solutions that you were already trying to use to get in front of the cookieless world, so to speak. But I guess the cookie doesn't crumble after all at Google. And I guess that's how we'd say this,
boy.
right?
Oh boy. Headline number 5. I'm going to do the audience a favor here.
Headline We're just going to move on after that really bad dad joke. Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
I see how it is here. I resemble that remark. That's cool.
Headline number 5, Amazombies, aka Amazon customers who show up each day with hundreds of packages to return, are turning store associates' jobs into a real horror story. According to Yahoo News, store employees say that the Amazombies have become a plague in their working lives, wasting staff time without increasing revenue while creating long lines, frayed tempers, and mounting piles of boxes and plastic waste. Some UPS store and Kohl's locations have had to allocate additional staff just to handle the workload. Amazon makes up about 1/10 of our profits, but it takes about 90% of the working day. That was a quote from Jeremy Walker, a store associate who worked at a UPS store near Dallas that received between 300 and 600 returns per day. Chris, how scary do you think the Amazombies are going to be to the average retailer who lets them inside their doors?
Wow, I love the emphasis you put on that. Like, you made it sound like a literal horror movie. I think they're gonna be. I think they should be very scary. I think the average retailer thinking about this should be very scared of the average Amazombie.
Were you surprised to hear that Kohl's was not and Staples were not getting any cut from Amazon?
No, because we've talked about it. We've talked. Any cut from Amazon? Yeah, I don't know how much. I didn't pay much attention to that. What I thought was more, I thought what you're asking me was like, they're not getting any bounce from letting the Amazombies in their store, which doesn't surprise me at all, given like we've talked about Kohl's and the results they've seen. So and we called this out a few weeks ago when Kohl's is trying to expand this strategy with their return drop concept.
Mm-hmm.
Like, UPS is one thing. Like, that to me is a different ball game here.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But if you're a retailer and your job is to sell stuff, you shouldn't be burdening. And why should you burden yourselves with this issue and handling other retailers' returns? That whole concept makes absolutely zero sense to me. And the only way I would ever conceive of doing something like this is if I was completely outsourcing it to somebody like a Happy Returns, for example. And if I was going to do this, I'd actually put the Happy Returns like shop visually in my store to be like, hey, you want this? You come here, you work with them. And my team is not freaking touching this at all. And if it's going to work by the dint and strength of Happy Returns business model. That's what I think. And then maybe you get some of that traffic in the store, but it sounds like you probably don't, which is what we've always surmised and seen from the headlines. But even then, I don't think I'd be focused on this. I wouldn't be putting this as a growth strategy because it's not going to drive. It's not $1 billion growth strategy. It's not even $100 million growth strategy probably at the end of the day. So the Amazombies are as scary as The Walking Dead, is what I'd say.
Yes. As a former journalist, I have a bone to pick with the journalism that's happening in this week's story, because also like UPS, like, this is your business, man. Like, this is what your job is to handle these packages. You get the contract with Amazon. They're paying you $1 per item or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't understand the UPS side of this at all.
UPS, that part I was just like, yeah, I get it. You have to staff more, but this is part of your business. Like, this is like, don't get into the business with Amazon then. I don't know what to tell you. But the Kohl's and Staples part of it, like, I agree. Like, I definitely can understand where, especially on Prime Day, where you have like giant pieces of furniture coming through, disrupting your stores. But that's also a big miss on the part of Kohl's and Staples for me. Like, you cannot just add this into your business. It's like curbside pickup during the pandemic. Like, you can't just put a doorway on and like expect that solution's going to last for years to come. You have to change staffing models. You have to figure out and better negotiate with Amazon some kind of way to compensate you and your team for being this hub. And that was a part that really surprised me. And because this story made it seem like there's nothing happening for Kohl's outside of, impact to their staff and to their store infrastructure, with zero commitment from Amazon or zero payment from Amazon for handling all of this. But
yeah. And as much as I joked about us not being real journalists, we do try really hard to be on the level journalists as best as we can. And yeah, that was a part of the story that I took issue with too, because I'm like, does the average store employee know what the contracts are with Amazon? I doubt it. I really doubt it. Like mine would not have. They would not have understood that. So I agree. There's been a lot of questionable stances and positions in some of the writing that's been taken this week without a doubt. But Ann, even in the curbside example, like you're at least selling your own stuff.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Yes. I think you're selling your own stuff in that case and it makes sense. But yeah, it's just, and I think that there is potential if Kohl's and if Staples like had the like, it just feels like there's no strategy to support this as a traffic driver out. Like they said in this article too, like, just giving people a $2 discount on a product is not a strategy. Like you have to figure out, I think, how to merchandise this better. Like what are I almost think about like, the TJX or Home Goods or Marshall's brands, or even now what Macy's is doing with like the line snaking, like, why not have product that you're like the grab and go product that you're sitting there. So you're selling
design your store around this too, which you haven't done. You're right.
Right. I just feel like there's nothing there to support it. Like, so if you just keep putting people through the store expecting a different result, like that, it's not going to happen. So how do you change that and really invest in that being, you've driven the traffic to the store. Now, how do you capture some sale from them?
So let me ask you this, and we actually have Ethan on later today in our Asking Experts series. I'm curious, this could be a story we follow up with him on to see like what's the traffic impact of this. But now, are you more or less bullish on the returns drops? You weren't super bullish on it before, but given this information, are you less bullish on it, even more so? I think I am. Like now you're going to open up even a bigger galaxy of Shopify vendors, right? Through this process, if I remember correctly, right? Like you're letting all these vendors in, some of which are smaller, bigger, God knows what. Now you're letting them into the store too. Like, it's like, come on, like, what are you trying to do here?
Yeah, I think without any changes to the strategy, I think it's a disaster.
A disaster. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, speaking of disasters, let's go to today's lightning round. Before 3 weeks on vacation, I have no idea where today's lightning round is going to go at, but we're going to have a ton of fun with it.
All right. Lightning round question number 1 for you, Chris. Amazon Prime Video is acquiring a historic British film studio that served as the production home for the 2nd season of the streaming series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. If you were head of Amazon Prime Video, which studio or production would be your next target?
Oh, this one's easy, Ann. Although Disney would never let them do that. I'd go for the Elstree studio or Pinewood Studios, also in London, because that's where they filmed Star Wars. Yeah.
Okay. 100%. Okay. You just tried to scoop that right up.
Do you have one? Is there one that's on your mind, or was this one a question just for me today?
This was just for you because I don't know the studios as well. Like I know the shows, obviously. Like I tell you about a show every day, pretty much. But I don't know the studio angle of it, and so this felt like a perfect question for you because I knew you would know exactly. You'd have an exact answer right away.
Yeah. Well, that's actually the only studio I know of too, believe it or not. But yeah, I don't get that deep into this stuff. But yeah. And this, folks, just kidding. This is not gonna be a lightning round. This is gonna be a round of various electrical surges, I think, throughout the next 5 or 6 minutes. All right, a trendy Brooklyn vintage shop that has been hit by shoplifters of late is fighting back with an art installation of the thieves' photos. So, Ann, my question for you is, back in your teenage dirtbag days, which you've told me quite a lot about over the years, would there have been any establishments that would have painted your face on the wall?
Yeah, probably the ones I worked at. I mean, I think if I'm
any in particular?
Honest, I don't know what the statute of limitations is on this stuff, so I better be careful. But Yeah, I mean, I worked at a drugstore and I worked at a tobacco shop, and let me tell you,
shop. That was what I was going for.
The tobacco shop, lots of stuff happened
what
there.
What age were you in the tobacco shop?
Oh God. Well, I was 16 when I was working at the tobacco shop.
Crazy.
You needed to
Different
be 18 to buy cigarettes. Yeah, I definitely was giving one of my friends that came in cigarettes. So
free pack.
Yeah, it was not my proudest moment. And yeah, my parents didn't really realize that I was working at the tobacco shop. It was in the same strip mall as the drugstore. So I was just picking up shifts here and there with some friends. So they might even have just known this by listening to this podcast, Chris. So yeah, it was not my finest moment. Teenage dirtbag is the perfect way to describe my teen years.
Very nice.
All right, let's go to question number 3. Chicken Salad Chick is expanding into another territory as they continue on their mission to open another 40 stores by the end of the year. If you were to open a franchise based on one of your favorite cuisines, what would it be and what would you name it?
Ooh, and you know, this one, you fortunately sent me a little bit of time ahead of time, or you gave me a little bit of advance warning on this one, because this one's tough. I had to think about this one for a long time.
Have you been to Chicken Salad Chick first?
No.
Like, I heard this place is like explode. Like I've never been, but listeners, tell us your thoughts, because I've heard this place is like super impressive. So
maybe I'm not a big fan of mass-produced chicken salad. That sounds like a norovirus waiting to happen, to be honest with you. But you know, especially with
why I picked this question for you.
Yeah, my gut. But I thought really hard about this. I was like, what food concept doesn't exist that could? And you know what? I love it. I love French fries, Anne.
Yeah.
And the thing I hate about getting French fries at a restaurant is you only get one type. Sometimes you might get 2. I actually went out to dinner last night and I looked to see how many types of French fries they have. And there was actually 3, because they throw in sweet potato fries as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you know, like, but there's so many different types of French fries, especially when you think about the seasoning and the sauces you could put with them. So yeah. I'm going with the French fry all the time store, and I'm calling it fly fry.
Fly fry. I like it. I like it.
One letter difference.
So you're taking inspiration from Rira, our favorite Las Vegas restaurant, Irish bar, that has the 2 kinds of fries, and this is just like an expansion of all those fries. You can have the pub fries, all of the varieties.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, there's the steak fry, there's the McDonald's fry, there's the corn flour dusted fry, there's the curly fry, the seasoned fry, I feel like I'm Bubba Gump shrimp right now, and that's what I feel like. I'm like, you know, but there's so many types of fries.
You might need to create that restaurant. That sounds actually incredible. I would attend Fly Fry, Chris.
The only problem is it's carb heavy. I think it's a little carb heavy.
Yes.
All right, last one. I was inspired this week, Ed. I really was. And so I made this question just for you. How would you rank the following household chores in order of most desirable to least desirable? 1, vacuuming the living room. 2, hand washing the dishes. Or 3, putting a fitted sheet on the bed.
Oh man, I just had to do this week because we have people staying in our house for a house swap. I would rank them in that exact order, because putting the sheets on the bed, one of my least favorite things. Me too.
Yes. That's why I asked you.
Bunk beds. Oh my God. My kids have bunk beds. I would do so much for my husband to have him take over the job of putting the fitted sheets on the bunk beds, because it's the worst. But you agree, you don't like fitted sheets.
Yeah, I had this epiphany this weekend. I was like, putting a fitted sheet on a bed. I'm like, I hate putting a fitted sheet on a bed. Like, it is just my least favorite thing to do, especially as you get older. Your hands start to hurt a little bit. It gets harder to do too. And like because you get some like arthritis going on or whatever. But yeah, but I'm like, this sucks. Like, I hate it. I'd rather, I didn't leave this option, but I'd rather plunge my toilet than put a fitted sheet on a bed. Ooh. Like, that's how much I hate doing it. But I'm surprised to see that was actually your least favorite thing. I bet many listeners are like, yeah, putting a fitted sheet on sucks.
What about hand washing the dishes? How does your rank? Do you put that before vacuuming?
No, my order would be the exact same as you. I hate hand washing the dishes too. Vacuuming, not a big deal. I just got to do it, but like, I don't mind doing vacuuming. Yeah. But yeah, like fitted sheets, like you got to get them, you got to know which end is right. And then you put it on sometimes and it gets twisted and you got to start over. It's just all disastrous. But
no, it's only going downhill with arthritis too, Chris.
Right. Or a stroke arm, right? Yeah, I'm like, come on. But anyway, all right, let's finish this up. Let's finish this gong show out, this literal gong show, because Anne is being recorded in front of an actual gong today. All right. Happy birthday today to Jennifer Lopez, Rose Byrne, and to the man who had a drinking problem like no other as the great Ted Stryker in Airplane, the wonderful Robert Hayes. And remember, if you can only read or listen to one retail blog in the business, make it Omni Talk, the only retail media outlet run by 2 former executives from a current top 10 U.S. retailer. Our Fast 5 podcast is the quickest, fastest rundown of all the week's top news. And our daily newsletter, the Retail Daily Minute, tells you all you need to know each day to stay on top of your game as a retail executive. And also regularly, and is what I'm trying to say, features special content that is exclusive to us and that Ann and I take a ton of pride in doing just for you. In fact, if you haven't yet, you should check out our latest Spotlight Series podcast on the past, present, and future of barcodes. And it's blowing up. Like,
it's so good.
It's an amazing amount of downloads on it this week. Yeah. It was really fun. It's a really interesting conversation. And you'll also learn that Anne read about the history of barcodes on the beach during her honeymoon. Mm-hmm. Tells you a lot about my business partner.
And I'm still married, surprisingly.
Right. And the beach actually plays quite well into the history of the barcode as well. So a little tease there. All right. Thanks as always for listening in. Please remember to like and leave us a review wherever you happen to listen to your podcast or on YouTube. You can follow us today by simply going to youtube.com/OmniTalkRetail. We are off, as Ann mentioned at the outset, for the next 3 weeks for a much-deserved vacation, and we'll return on August 21st. So until then, and on behalf of all of us at Omni Talk Retail, as always, be careful out there.